Okay, so a no-deal Brexit is seeming more and more likely. Now, while Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, has come out and said to private companies that they will not allow a no-deal Brexit to happen, Theresa May, at least at the time of recording this, has refused to say that to Jeremy Corbyn. And that's Jeremy Corbyn's line. Take no-deal Brexit off the table and we will talk. That is the only line. But the little child that she is refuses to say that to Corbyn. And in the time she's been in power, she's actually done very little to actually contact the leader of the opposition. Yet she has spoken to the Lib Dems, she's spoken to the DUP, she's spoken to the Green Party and everyone else. But very, very rarely spoken to Labour, which to me gives a point to Jeremy Corbyn, because every time she does it, he praises her for doing it in a very public way. Personally, I wouldn't, but that's just me. But as no-deal Brexit seems to be a more likely option, what exactly will that entail? Because there's a lot of people out there who aren't too involved in politics who are promoting it. There are people involved in politics like Jacob Rees-Mogg who are pushing it. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg has been called out for his lies too many times to go into, so I'm not necessarily going to top on what he says. But let's look at trade straight off the bat, because leaving the EU isn't a reset. Leaving the EU means we have nothing to do with the rest of the continent. So we have no trade deals with the other 27 countries in the European Union. It also means that the vast majority of our trade deals mean nothing, and they have to be worked on again. So straight off the bat, we're not just losing the EU, we are losing 77 trade deals with other countries. 77 countries we will no longer have trade deals with because we've left the EU. That's gonna mess a lot of people up. And even some leavers and those who promote a hard Brexit are saying, okay, well, maybe things will be difficult for a few months, but we'll get back on our feet because we're British. Well, here's the thing of that. There are millions of people in this country who survive from paycheck to paycheck. There are millions of people who must take out payday loans from paycheck to paycheck. Things getting harder for a few months will see these people out on the street, and the government has been very clear on its attitude to homelessness so far. That is, we don't think it's a thing, stop lying. That's their response. Not we're going to help people who need helping, we're going to punish people who weren't privileged enough to be born into multi-millionaire families. Shortages of medicines. Now this is a 50-50. Part of the issue that I have with the EU is that we can't expand the borders and to get in medicines that will help certain people with certain conditions. It has to go through the EU, and if they say no, we've kind of fucked it. But here's the thing. By dropping out with a no-deal Brexit from the EU, well, we've just cut off a limb and we're waiting for America to come in and save us. For what? Donald Trump, who refuses to open the federal government because he wants a border wall that every expert in the field has said will be ineffectual. Donald Trump, who said he'll have a trade deal with the UK if he can buy the NHS. Okay, good luck with that. UK security and policy weakened. Policing weakened. Now, this is one of those things that people take for granted. There will probably be intel sharing between the EU and the UK. And that kind of goes without saying. I can't imagine that just being cut off. But right now, our police do an amazing job, severely underfunded, and yet they can do it because they have help from the EU. They have up to the second latest information on known criminals and terrorist groups moving throughout the EU. That's going to be gone. Could still get updates, sure, but they're not going to be up to the second because we would have lost everything we have with the EU. Hard border in Northern Ireland. Now, this has been said a lot, and it comes down to a lot of people not really understanding the border situation. The border in Ireland runs through people's homes because they've not needed a physical border, so life carries on. You also have to take into consideration you're going to have a member of a union state connected to the same landmass as a country that is not connected to the same union state. So there will have to be checks and balances. The backstop is a way of getting around it. Nobody particularly likes it, and unlike what that moron Rees-Mogg keeps putting out, it is actually a necessity. The extreme example I like to give for this is, imagine that the European Union legalises heroin in every single form. Northern Ireland's part of the UK. The UK is not going to legalise heroin. But how are you going to stop heroin coming in masses into Northern Ireland and into the rest of the country without stopping and checking? It's a very extreme case, but that's the kind of thing that we're working on. There will be things that the EU has going around it that we won't want in this country, that we won't have in this country, and vice versa. Trade with the whole world on worse terms. Now, again, this is one of those things that people don't necessarily, if they don't follow politics as closely as someone with no life like me do, you won't really get this. But Japan has a deal with the European Union, which means they have a deal with us. Part of the terms and conditions that the European Union deals have is that the other party, in this case Japan, cannot give a better deal to anyone else. So us leaving the European Union, Japan cannot give us a better deal than what they're giving the European Union. And Japan's not going to sack off 27 countries for one country with a government who refuses to accept reality. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter if there are BFFs. It comes down to a money and business standpoint. You are not going to disqualify 27 customers for one when that one isn't as rich as a couple in the 27. Brits lose right protections and opportunities. Now, I did a video very recently with Theresa May hinting that she wants to get rid of the human rights. This is what a minister came forward and essentially leaked to the press. And it's all well and good saying we have the Magna Carta, but here's the thing. Look at what the government has already taken. And look at what, in theory, they weren't allowed to take. Schools across the country said that they couldn't afford to stay open for a full 5 days a week. Philip Hammond, in response to this, cut education. They say that they've given more money to the NHS as a booster than any other government. Absolutely true. The Conservatives have. But that's because they have cut funding to the NHS more than any other government. They've cut funding to the police, despite numerous police officers and government bodies stepping forward saying, no, if you actually do this, you are going to leave us wide open to terrorist attacks and more crime. Yet they've done it. It's all very well and good saying, well, we have this bit of paper and that protects us, but reality doesn't hold true with that. And if the Conservatives want to get rid of human rights, which they've already been doing, and they've said that they want to do this for years now, well, that's what they're going to do. because now we've just lost the EU protection. And as a care worker, there's no care union. However, there is a care union with Europe. Little bit of a tangent going off a little bit, but a few years ago a friend of mine worked in care. He was doing a sleep night. He had to get up, he had to do his job, which is why sleep nights should get paid an hourly wage. He got hurt. He got seriously hurt. He had numerous ribs broken. I believe he had a broken leg from all of this. And the company essentially turned around and told him it was his fault. That obviously didn't fly well. He had to take time off and the company weren't going to pay him for that. There was nothing in the UK that protected him, but there was something in the EU that protected him. Being that he knew about this, he fully took advantage of the situation. He got a very handsome payout, which didn't leave him rich, but it certainly got him out of the debt he was in as a result of being battered at work. We are now losing that. UK industry killed off like mining and steel. This goes back to the kind of simplistic, we are British, so we'll get through mentality of things. If you're a businessman, you're not necessarily going to pay for premium steel. You're going to get the stuff that's cheapest and yet still does the job. That's what you're going to go for. You're not going to go for a triple gold, platinum, everything, as long as it does the job and it saves you a lot of money. It's going to cost us more money. It's going to cost for us to produce more steel than China. So why would anyone go to us rather than get it from China? I mean, you can push forward on green energy and I am all for that. That will be a massive boom because we are in a situation now where people are actually starting to wake up and realize we have to do something about the environment right now. Green energy industry is going to explode, given it that it has the right push. But again, with fossil fuel industries paying Theresa May over 100,000 in 1 year, in 2 years, the government focuses more on fossil fuel rather than green industry. They cut subsidies to green industries and give them all to wealthy, established fossil fuel. Job loss, inflation, poorest being hit the hardest. Now, I've already mentioned this. There are millions of people in this country who survive from paycheck to paycheck. Things getting a little bit harder means they will be forced out on the street and the government won't do a damn thing about it. Jacob Rees-Mogg is not going to go out in the streets and take people into his mansions. Theresa May is not going to go out into the street and pull people off the street so that they can live in a warm home. I mean, hell, the only time she meets people in the public is when they have been vetted and certified. I mean, hell, even now she still hasn't met with the survivors of Grenfell Tower. A no-deal Brexit is catastrophic, and there are so many more things, but we've already gone past 14 minutes. Push members of parliament to work on a deal. Now, I know I'm a Remainer and it annoys me that so many people fell for the con, but push the leave date back. There's no actual guidelines as to how many times we can push the leave date back, which I understand annoys a lot of leavers. But if we leave without a deal, with our current infrastructure, the only people who are going to be okay are those who can afford to piss away a few thousand a month. Now, unfortunately, thanks to conservative austerity inflicted on the country, that is not the majority of us.